But with that being said, should be an exciting one. And we'll just get right into it. Starting with the 1 o'clock games, correction. Starting with the Dublin game where my Minnesota Vikings took on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And man, as a Vikings fan, I'm disappointed. But I think this season, maybe it's a hot take for me as a Vikings fan, but I think I think I know what the Vikings are going to be. I think it's kind of a 49ers year from last year where there's just too many injuries to overcome. They're going to finish with like 7 wins. It's going to be like a retool kind of year because they could have won this one, but credit to the Steelers. The Steelers were the better team for 3/4 of the game. The Steelers defense has really turned it up the last couple of weeks, forcing 5 turnovers on the Patriots, only allowing 14 points, getting to Carson Wentz 6 times, forcing him to get 2 picks and almost a Jordan Mason fumble 6. But Jordan Mason smartly or luckily touched the ball out of bounds. But overall, Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers offense looked like their best since week 1. Aaron Rodgers was getting the ball out at a quick rate, a little bit over 2 seconds. It was like the quickest time since like 16. So the Steelers offense knew what to do. They were just finding DK Metcalf, who had a big 100-plus yard game, touchdown. Just getting the ball quick, slant routes, and just go to town. The Steelers offense, I thought would be a big problem in this, but Arthur Smith really did a good job out-coaching Brian Flores in this one. And the Steelers' run game, even without Jalen Warren, Kenny Gainwell went right in and gashed the Vikings. I think that's what I've been most disappointed in because the Vikings offense just so banged up with injuries that, the Steelers are taking advantage of that. But I can't really blame it on the Vikings line. You're playing backups again, a good front 7. I think you know how it's going to go down, especially when Brian O'Neill went out. I was scared for my life when Justin School had to go in against TJ Watt. And, they did a good job, I think, using TJ Hawkinson to block. But eventually you're going to have to unleash some passes. And the Steelers got to him. Got to Wentz a lot, made him rattle, uncomfortable off base, which led to some of those picks. And overall, just, a rough game for the Vikings. But, the run defense has been really abysmal. Caleb Williams and the Bears did a good job running on them. Bijan Ross, Falcons had a historic rushing day. And the Steelers, even with backups, ran for 130 yards, and the Steelers' run game is not that good, even with Jalen Warren in. So it really is a credit to the Steelers, but also how disappointed this Vikings front 7 has been. And I know they're missing Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, but still, it's bad. Every team deals with injuries. But, it's really behind the Vikings this year where I think there's just going to be too many injuries to overcome. And, it happens. You were last year, took advantage of that, won 14 games. 2022, weren't injured, won 13. Then the year in the middle, Kirk Cousins goes down for the year. You win 7. I think we're kind of looking at a year for that. McCarthy banged up. We'll see what happens. I'm still intrigued. It's still early. You're still 2-2, but you're kind of entering a must-win territory to keep any playoff hopes alive in London next week against the Cleveland Browns and that great defense. Oh boy. But credit to the Steelers. They're 3-1 when, a lot of people thought they were kind of a fraud 2-1 team. They came out here, dominated in the trenches on defensive line and, O-line, got Kenny Gainwell going, and Rodgers was very efficient. That's all you can ask for. Although the one thing I would say about the Steelers that I'm a little bit, perplexed by is not going for it on that 4th and 1, trying to end the game because you gave the Vikings multiple chances with penalties. But still, they played good for 9%, but the Steelers just got to be. I'd like to see them close out games better. I think for a Steelers fan, you guys could agree as well. When you're up 24-10, you should be playing prevent defense. The last thing you want to do is give up a chunk play to Jordan Addison where you let him go 90 yards. And credit to the guy, Wilson, I believe, who made the tackle because it did end up saving a minute on clock, which could have been a valuable minute for the Vikings offense. They did end up scoring, but still, it was a great tackle. But just, a little bit of blown coverage at the end, but they hang on. Now they're 3-1 heading back home. So great win for the Steelers in Dublin, and just that environment there looked very electric. So that was fun to see, and some early morning football never hurts as my eyes can't bleed anymore. Next up, the first 1 o'clock game, Commanders versus Steelers. I got this one wrong as well because I did pick the Vikings over the Steelers. I picked the Commanders over the Falcons. Just with the way the Falcons looked last week, I was obviously putting up a donut. I know their defense is great. And the Commanders, this was just a big bounce back game for the Falcons. I think Michael Penix was very efficient. Besides that one pick, Bijan Robinson got going in the running game and in the passing game and really just overwhelmed the Commanders. Marcus Mariota did have a mistake. I still feel like the Commanders offense, was pretty functional. But I think the story was just the Atlanta Falcons having a bounce back game. Without Jane Daniels, obviously, you're climbing an uphill battle in Atlanta, and Atlanta was hungry to prove everyone wrong after an ugly game against the Panthers where they got shut out 30-0. Penix had the worst game of his career so far. Drake London finally got going. Kyle Pitts had a touchdown, and Bijan Robinson is going to do Bijan Robinson things. So I think that was the biggest, credit to the Falcons. I did call out Zach Robinson just because I wanted to see more from them, should say. And the Commanders hung in there for a while, but overall, they just didn't have efficient of a game on offense as they did a week before. But they still hung in there with Mariota. I'm not really worried about the Commanders. They get Jane Daniels back next week. But major credit to the Falcons, going from 0 to 34 points. They had a bounce back game. Michael Penix, showed some nice resilience. Basically entering his full first season. So that was good to see. Next up, Titans Texans. I took the Texans. In this one, and I thought it was going to be a really ugly game. And it was for a majority of the game. It was 6-0 entering the fourth quarter, but then the Texans kind of put on the gas. Willie Marks looked great. CJ Stroud finally got going. This offense came to life in the fourth quarter and really buried the Titans. And as Cam Ward said after the game, we are ass. And yes, the Titans are ass. The offense hasn't done anything over the first 4 weeks. I think the biggest thing is Brian Callahan's probably going to be fired before the end of the season. I wasn't really a fan of him, of the hiring in general. Wasn't a fan of him last year. And still have more question marks because it should look a little bit better than last year, and it really hasn't. Cam Ward can't really do much, and it's not really all on him at all. It's just bad coaching, a bad team. Texans off defense continues to be elite, the one bright spot. And if the offense can carry any sort of momentum from this game into their weeks, maybe they still have a chance at a wild card because when you're 0-3, you need a win. And the Texans got that at home. Good bounce back win. Will be interesting to see if this offense and CJ Stroud can continue to carry this momentum into next week. Next up, Browns versus Lions. I think this is kind of how I expected it to go. The Lions were at home. The Browns defense made Jared Goff uncomfortable for a while, but the Lions still were efficient on the ground, especially with Gibbs. Montgomery wasn't, but the Browns defense kept them in it for a while. But the biggest difference is the Browns offense just can't compete outside of Judkins. Joe Flacco threw, I think, 2-3 picks, really in bad spots too, given the Lions short fields. Browns defense still held for a while. It was 20-10, I believe, like early in the fourth, with the offense moving. Unfortunately, a missed field goal, and then the Browns still hold, but then they get a special teams punt return touchdown. I feel like special teams has played more of a part in any season through 4 weeks than ever so far, and that really kind of put the game to bed. Lions were able to get a late touchdown. Amama St. Brown with another great game. Jameer Gibbs had an efficient game, and that's just the dangers. 1 week, last week against the Ravens, it can be Montgomery having the efficient game. This week, it's Gibbs. There's just so many weapons on this team. And Jared Goff, it wasn't the smoothest game, but he took care of the ball for the most part, and they were just efficient, passing the ball to St. Brown, just finding ways to get it done. And this offense played great for the most part, considering the challenge of the Browns defense. Because I was really excited, when John Morgan called out the Browns defense, saying they had seen a run game like ours. I think both teams, I think early on Cleveland was winning the battle, then the Lions pulled away late. But still, each team threw their punches on offense and defense, not the Browns offense. Outside the opening drive, they took a 7-0 lead. My boy Judkins rushing it in. But other than that, this Cleveland offense is brutal to watch. And I think Vikings versus Browns has like a 12-10 game written all over it next week. So excited to see that as a Vikings fan, still forced to watch, while many people might still sleep in and just wait until the 1 o'clocks, which I can't blame them. But credit to Lions, continue to showing they're the best team in the NFC North, in my opinion. After a rough week 1, their offense has been electric since then. And Cleveland, elite defense, bad offense, going to be what we see all year outside of Judkins on the offense. Next up, Saints versus Bills. This game surprisingly was close for a while. I was, looking sideways at the Bills for a minute, but Josh Allen, still put up 3 touchdowns, an MVP performance. But like I said, I mean, this at one point I believe was 21-16, and looked like Spencer Rattler found Brandon Cooks for a touchdown, but it ended up hitting the ground. Saints settled for a field goal. Still 21-19, but then Josh Allen put a big drive together, found Kincaid for like a 30-yard bomb. And the Bills offense still wasn't the prettiest, early on after scoring quickly to go up like 14-7 or something. The Saints, credit to them, they hung in this game on the road. I thought this would be a huge blow, just given all the Bills' momentum, but Spencer Rattler has proven he can be a quarterback in this league nonetheless. He's made some good throws, and the Saints could have early on, they ran a flea flicker or like a trick play with Chris Olave. He ended up throwing a pick in the Bills' red zone. I think just a bad play call there. You don't want to do that so close to the end zone. But, Saints shot themselves in the foot a couple times, or this game really could have been a full-on upset. But the Bills, Josh Allen, he knows how to win. And just, when it looks like the Saints are close, they put their neck down. The defense gets stops. And that ended up being the factor. Bills still win 31-19. So it was a little bit of an upset watch, but, credit to Josh Allen. He continues his MVP performance. Another 3-touchdown game. James Cook still getting going on the ground. This team, so many weapons. Kincaid can make a play. Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir had a big great first touchdown where he just broke through tackles, ended up going 40 yards. So just so many weapons on this Bills team. And once they get fully healthy on defense, expecting them to continue to improve in that department. And 4-0 in the Saints, like we expect, are at 0-4. But a sneaky competitive 0-4. Really, the only bad game was them versus the Seahawks. Next up, Panthers, Patriots. And I did take the Bills and Lions and Texans. So I am 4 in a row there, and that will continue with the Patriots over Panthers. Patriots put belt to ass. Panthers came out opening drive. Bryce Young looked great, similar to the Browns versus Lions. And then after that, did not do bleep. Drake May did a great job utilizing his legs. Travion Henderson got majority of the carries. Diggs had some great catches. Hunter Henry's a touchdown. The Patriots offense was just humming. Best we've seen all season. And I think we've seen the vision where they're playing tough physical football on the defensive end, getting after the quarterback, making Bryce Young rattled, frustrated, throwing helmet to the ground. And Drake May, like I said, had his, one of his best games, if not the best game so far this season. Even just looking at the box score, was very efficient. 14-17 for 203, 2 touchdowns. And they just ran the ball. Travion Henderson got some carries early, had a tutty. And, the biggest thing was no turnovers. That's what shot them against the Steelers because they were moving the ball well, but they, just could not capitalize. And they had turnovers in the end zone. So the Patriots could easily be looking at a 3-1 or even 4-0 start because the Raiders game was there for the taking. But it is what it is. Patriots will still take it 2-2. And I think we're seeing they're a much improved team, especially on the defensive end, really rattling Bryce Young because then the last touchdown was just Andy Dalton coming in, doing Andy Dalton things, the Red Rocket gunslinging for a late garbage time touchdown. But yeah, Panthers really just stunned by how bad the defense was after really stopping Atlanta last week. Wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to be like a 17-14 game where the Patriots win, but no. Patriots, I think, came out frustrated knowing they should have won last week and set the tone early on and just played great on both sides of the ball. Complimentary football, which Mike Vrabel is bringing to this team. So great for the Patriots, 2-2, looking like a sneaky, maybe possible wildcard team. Next up, upset of the day, the 3-0 Chargers at the 0-3 Giants, and the Giants and Jackson Dart's debut pull it out. And like I said, I've always been a Jackson Dart fan going back to Ole Miss, but the Giants did a great job, utilizing the spread offense, really doing a good job accustoming to what Jackson Dart does well, using his legs when he need to, had 50-plus rushing yards, rushed in for his first touchdown. They ran a nice little toss play for his first touchdown pass. And the Giants' defense is scrappy. They were pressuring Herbert. Joe Alt went out early, so this Chargers offensive line already missing Rashawn Slater was really banged up. And the Giants' front seven, that's their strength. We're feasting. And Herbert, didn't have an MVP performance today, but under that amount of pressure, I wasn't really expecting that after Joe Alt went out. That was a big killer. And the Chargers were still in it until the end. Herbert and Johnson, that connection still seems unstoppable. But after that, the Giants just did a good job running the ball with Kim Scottaboo, eating clock in this one, not giving Herbert many chances. And that was the biggest difference. And the Giants were able to close it out, use the time wisely, gave Herbert really no chance at the end there. And that's the Giants' first win. I think they played complimentary football, and Jackson Dart just brought a life to this team that Russell Wilson couldn't. And I'm excited to see how Dart continues to grow because the accuracy still needs to work on in the short game over top. But it's unfortunate for both teams that the biggest story is Joe Alt, stud left tackle, out. Malik Neighbors, torn ACL, out for the year. So just fix that turf at MetLife because we don't want to see our superstars go out. But it is unfortunate for the Chargers that they had a slip up in this week where they really, had a clear path to win the AFC West. And they still do. But with the way we'll get into them in a little bit, the Chiefs looked, it sucks to lose this one, especially to an 0-3 team. But Giants, gave some life, and Brian Daboll is, praying to Jackson Dart for saving his job. So credit to the Giants, big win. Did not see that coming. Was expecting maybe a little bit closer game because I do like Jackson Dart, but wow, what a game. Next up, Eagles Buccaneers, the last of the 1 o'clock, and it looked like it was going to be a blowout. Eagles went up 21-0 early. Were blitzing the Bucs, rattling them. Started off with another block from the Eagles. This time a punt, return for a touchdown. The offense was super efficient in the first half. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, they ran a nice trick play on the the tush push handoff to Saquon Barkley. So the Eagles were cooking with gas. But then Baker and the Bucs in the second half finally got going, hit some big plays to Emeka Ibuka, Bucky Irving on deep touchdowns. And they came back, and the Eagles, the biggest storyline was Jalen Hurts did not complete a pass in the second half, 0 passing yards. But the Eagles, they always find ways to win. They had a big red zone turnover in the fourth quarter, and then held the Bucs when the Bucs were marching. And that was the story right there. The Eagles defense came in clutch when it mattered most, despite allowing some deep plays, and the offense carried that momentum from the Rams second half into this first half and then kind of stalled out. But I think the Buccaneers proved they can hang around with the best of the best. They're a very good team, very high-powered offense, even without Mike Evans. The defense still has some holes because the Eagles were gashing them early. But, yeah, I mean, for the Eagles, they just find ways to win, and that's what great teams do. And there's nothing, to say about it. And for Tampa, nothing really to hang your hat on, or nothing really to be disappointed about. You were down 21-0, fought back, could have won the game if it wasn't, for that tip pick or, just the last drive of the Eagles generating too much pressure. It's unfortunate, but, having Tristan Wirfs there is great for the Bucs, and it was just a great battle between two NFC teams, and you knew the Buccaneers weren't going to go quietly, but it would be very exciting to see these two teams in the playoffs, just see young Quinyon Mitchell going at it with Baker and Wirfs, not afraid to step up to the big guys. This would be a great battle. But yeah, credit to the Bucs for hanging in there, even without Mike Evans. But credit to the Eagles. Getting a road win against an undefeated team is never easy. And now the biggest question mark remains AJ Brown sending out cryptic tweets after only having 2 catches for 7 yards. Still, diva problems in Philly, but they figured a way to work it out last season. I think they'll find a way to do it again, but that'll be an intriguing watch to see if the frustration from these Eagles receivers continues to boil over. Next up, Colts vs. Rams was a great game. I also took the Rams in this one, and overall was a back and forth. Colts, Daniel Jones threw a pick early. Rams went up 3-0, but the Colts responded well. Tyler Warren had a nice game. A.D. Mitchell, though, man, that's the storyline there. They're down, I believe it was 13-10. He makes a great catch with the Rams defender, kind of one-hands it in, brings it in, but then sticks the ball out right at the 1-yard line. And this happened last year with Jonathan Taylor. It's just, why, man? Just score. And I'm frustrated. I'd be frustrated if I was a Colts fan because that really, was a touchdown taken away. Instead, fumble. Rams get the ball back. Still, Colts have a chance. It's 17-13 after Shane Steichen led a great play calling drive. Daniel Jones found Michael Pittman, just different guys stepping up for the Colts. And the Colts took advantage of Rams' Matthew Stafford fumble, kicked a field goal, though, because of a Tyler Warren offensive pass interference, I believe it was. So still 20-13. Then fourth down, Rams are marching. Matthew Stafford finds Nakua, who's on pace for a historic wide receiver season. We saw Matthew Stafford do it with Cooper Kupp in 2021. We're kind of seeing it all over again. Had another 13-yard catch game. Still, though, 20-20. Jared Verse kind of disrupt things on that Colts, one of their second to last drive. Colts have to punt. Matthew Stafford finds Tutu Atwell for a big gain. Matthew Stafford, 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns. So that back ain't bothering him right now. This Rams offense was humming. Colts, last drive, Daniel Jones throws a pick. That's game. Still, I think for the Colts, you have nothing to hang your hat on. You competed with one of the best teams in the NFC, a Super Bowl contender on LA. And if it wasn't for that A.D. Mitchell screw up, this game's tied. If not, they win. And credit to the Rams, that front seven, especially Jared Verse, is just so disruptive. They held Jonathan Taylor in check for the most part. But for the Colts, really nothing to be disappointed about. Daniel Jones was efficient for the most part after that first pick. And then the second pick, he's just trying to lead a comeback drive. Still, obviously disappointing when you had a game that was winnable right there and really could have made a statement. But a statement was made from me and both teams. I think the Rams have one of the best offenses of football, best receiver in football right now in Nakua. And the Colts are one of the best teams in the AFC. Their offense is very efficient, very complete with Shane Steichen calling plays, and this defense is making timely plays. Unfortunately, didn't this game, but it is what it is. We now, both teams are 3-1, and showing that they, are competing to be solid playoff teams, and mostly for the Rams Super Bowl contender. Next up, Jaguars versus 49ers. I picked the 49ers in this one. And unfortunately, just, it was Brock Purdy's first game back. But the Jaguars jumped on him early. They went up like 14-3, something like that. And the biggest story was Brock Purdy's turnovers in this game. I believe he had 2 interceptions. Yes, in this one, only 57% completion. The running game wasn't really efficient at all, and it kind of has been all year. Maybe it's just an O-line problem at this point. But McCaffrey's still amazing in the passing game. And unfortunately, it was just too little too late. 49ers scored a late fourth quarter touchdown midway through, but that's all. And like I said, special teams, Jaguars get a punt return touchdown. ETN was still efficient. But the biggest thing for me was Trevor Lawrence did not turn over the ball, which has been kind of killing keeping games closer, losing them that game against the Bengals when they didn't need to. But credit to the Jags. This defense is getting turnovers, forcing fumbles. 49ers, when you have 3 turnovers, you're not going to win this game. They try to claw themselves back into it, but the Jaguars hang on. This offense, Travis Etienne looks so revived, which is so great to see. Trevor Lawrence played efficient enough football to get this done. Travis Hunter made a great catch out of their own goal line. Overall, for Jacksonville, I'm excited to see, if this deep defense can continue to just be making plays, and if this offense with Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. can just get going, have that big game, Brian Thomas Jr. breakout game, that'd be awesome. For the 49ers, though, just with all the injuries, it's tough to overcome. They almost did again, but they just can't turn the ball over 3 times and expect to win. That was kind of the difference in this one. But at home, this hurts to lose. Very winnable game, but couldn't get it done. But, credit to the Jaguars. They're showing a lot of resilience in that defense. Like I said, they had the fewest takeaways last season, have the most so far. So good turnaround there in Duval. And still the offense with Liam Cohen just looks a lot better, especially in the run game than it did with Doug Peterson. And then this 4:00 game, Bears Raiders, absolute movie, kind of a back and forth. We had our first GNT game, 3 touchdowns, over 100 on the ground, a couple of receptions that went for touchdowns. But still, Geno Smith has not been efficient. Had another 3 turnover game. And when you have that, you're not going to win games. Caleb Williams did have 2 fumbles, didn't lose any of them, had that 1 pick, but still had a great touchdown pass to Roma Dune, continuing to build his connection. And when they need it most, they led a game-winning drive. And that was kind of the story. I mean, simply for the most part, the Raiders, you want to get Ashton Jeanty going against this kind of weak Bears front 7 so far. And they did that. But still, Geno Smith just making high-risk plays that are just not working. And when you have 3 interceptions, you're putting your defense in bad spots. And the Bears did just enough to capitalize it. And the Raiders still, Geno Smith, when they need it most, did lead a game-winning drive. When Dennis Allen was down up the pressure, finding Brock Bowers for short routes. But still lined up for 52-yarder where another blocked field goal happens. So the Bears finally get some field goal luck their way. And now, after starting off 0-2, looking dead in the water after that Lions game, they have won 2 games where they look great against the Cowboys and then, pulled off a comeback win against the Raiders. And like I said, credit to Caleb Williams. Definitely wasn't as good as last week, but when they need him most, led that game-winning drive and threw that touchdown pass. I believe it was it wasn't Roma Dunze. That was early in the game. It was DeAndre Swift rushing it in for the touchdown, but still, Caleb Williams led the drive and was efficient enough to get done despite, not the best running game. And then for the Raiders, the best part obviously is Ashton Jeanty finally, doing what he needs to do, but obviously just still disappointed Geno leading the league or second in interceptions. Just you can't have that because that's what's killing games so far. It killed them in the Chargers game and now kills them in this one. So hopefully he can bounce back because, he was such a great QB in Seattle, but disappointed for the Raiders to start off 1-3, but good for the Bears. Even as a Vikings fan, they're very competitive, very scrappy, and getting the job done now 2-2 under Ben Johnson. And then the America's game of the week, I picked the Ravens, and boy, man, how much did Xavier really mean to this offense? Amazing game for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, 4 touchdown passes. And the Ravens offense could do pretty much after that opening drive. They held Lamar in check, fumble, interception. Derrick Henry did not get many carries in this one on 3rd and short, 4th and short, which is super questionable. And the Ravens, they're just banged up with injuries. Matabike out on IR. Lamar has a hamstring. Marlon Humphrey left this game. But the Chiefs were just punishing them. Xavier Worthy, 80-plus receiving yards, 30-plus yards just on jet sweeps. Absolutely killing the Ravens, which just opens it up for other guys like Tyquan Thorne to catch touchdowns, Hollywood Brown to have a game. This is about the Chiefs' offense has looked in years. Andy Reid and this team made a statement in this one, blowing out the Ravens. Cooper Rush had to come in the 4th quarter. And I'm just disappointed. the Ravens defense looks like it did in the first half of the last year, and this offense, the last 2 weeks really hasn't been that efficient. They've been turning the ball over. Lamar's been getting pressured. Derrick Henry hasn't gone going since week 1. Just overall a lot of question marks. I know they're very much banged up, similar to my Vikings, but still now a Super Bowl contender, my Super Bowl pick 1-3. How this is the Lamar hamstring that remains to be seen, but I think a statement also made that the Chiefs aren't going anywhere when they just have weapons. Rashee Rice coming back soon. This team's scary. They started off 0-2, and now quickly they're only a game back in the division. Still have to play the Chargers again. Man, the defense also made a statement, basically only allowing 13 points until that late Justice Hill rushing touchdown. So credit to the Chiefs. They're back up. Mahomes looked like his MVP self, and I think it proved, when you plug guys back in like Xavier Worthy, just opens it up for others. And yeah, Mahomes, another 4 touchdown, 0 turnover game. Looked like vintage Patrick Mahomes out there. And, credit to them. And like I said, they really did a good job rattling Lamar after the opening drive touchdown. Still, would like them to be a little bit more efficient on the ground. Pacheco was pretty efficient, but Kareem Hunt, 13 carries for 34 yards. I'd say that's my biggest problem, but did a good job spreading the ball. You see, Hollywood Brown had a touchdown, 3 catches, 38. Juice Smith-Schuster contributing. Tyquan Thornton only had 1 catch, but that was a touchdown. Xavier Worthy, 5 catches, 83 yards, and just the threat of the passing game really opened things up for Travis Kelce to get 5 catches of his own. So, and once Rashee Rice comes back, man, this team, hate to say it again, could be going back to the Super Bowl. Might be an overreaction, but I don't care. And then last up, our Sunday Night Football game ended up being an absolute banger. Obviously, the storyline was Micah Parsons returning to Dallas. But boy, I was not expecting this. Early on, Packers jumped out 13-0. Romeo Doubs, a couple touchdown passes. I was like, all right, this is what I expect. Then after the blocked field goal, once again, blocked extra point, I should say, Dallas returns at 13-2. Then Dallas leads an effective drive. Dak gets a rushing touchdown, and then they strip sack Jordan Love, take the lead before halftime, finding George Pickens. And then this just turned out into an instant classic. Josh Jacobs had his first breakout game. Jordan Love in this offense bounced back. Romeo Doubs, 3 touchdowns. Tucker Kraft was making some catches. They were just moving the ball around efficiently, this Mount Floor offense. But then Dallas, George Pickens, 130 yards, like 2 touchdowns. Jake Ferguson had a touchdown. Javonte Williams, 80-plus yards, a touchdown. This just turned into an offensive shootout, and I just wasn't expecting that the way the Packers defense looked. And then at the end, with like 25 seconds left, Packers have a chance to win. I'll settle for a field goal. And then just questionable clock management. Packers did not seem to be in a rush. They almost ended up on the last play, had lucky for them, 1 second left to kick a field goal to end up tying it. But Jordan Love was just kind of lackluster at the line. And Matt LaFleur was kind of questioning that. I'm not really sure who's that's on. But yeah, the story for the Packers after 2-0, even myself was convinced they were going basically to the Super Bowl. They looked like the best offense in football, very efficient, the best defense in football. And then last week against Cleveland, they have a stinker on offense, choke a 10-point lead away with 3 minutes to go. And then this week, tie the Cowboys 40-40, but the way they were up 13-0 early, still having a lead in the fourth, this feels like a loss. Because now the Lions jumping them. For the Cowboys, this feels like a win, even though they may feel like, they could have won this as well. Dallas really had no business winning this game, especially without CeeDee Lamb. Packers defense just laid an egg on Micah Parsons' return. Micah Parsons did have that one big play that maybe saved Dak from rushing in for a touchdown. But for the most part, I thought the Cowboys kind of kept him in check for the most part. He did get some pressures, but it's Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in football. You're going to take that. So I think the Packers have their bye week now. Credit to Dallas. They really bounced back on offense, again, especially after having a stinker against the Bears. And without CeeDee Lamb, I was not expecting this. But Dallas at home, Brian Schottenheimer, this offense is going to put up points. And George Pickens, man, what a receiver. He proved he can be a wide receiver 1 in this league, and why he's always so demanding of the ball despite some of his actions. Great to see him, look amazing, just cooking the Packers secondary all night long. And then for the Packers, great bounce back game on offense. Josh Jacobs looked like the best he's looked all season, but still disappointed. Even as a Vikings fan, I should be, thrilled that the Packers tied, even though I don't really have any more expectations for the Vikings, but still just kind of a demoralizing way for the Packers when you start 2-0. You have the Browns, who are one of the worst offenses in football, and the Cowboys that have one of the worst probably the worst defense in football. And you have a tie and a loss from it. not ideal. Now, like I said, Detroit takes first place, and I think maybe we did overreact on the Packers a little bit. I know they're missing Jaden Reed though, so Jordan Love 3 out of 4 games has looked amazing. This offensive line I know is banged up, so maybe if they get fully healthy, they'll go back to looking like a high end NFC contender. But for now, I still can't put them over the Lions, the Eagles, especially. I think them and the Buccaneers are kind of in a similar pack, but even then, I think the Rams are better than them. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious how the Packers come out of the bye after just 2 kind of questionable games, especially questionable ending in that game. But credit to Dallas. Like I said, Dak Prescott had one of his iconic Dak Prescott games, and this offense is going to be special. Like I said, the Cowboys are going to be must-see TV every week because they're going to score a lot of points and allow a lot of points. That's what we're going to see. But interesting game, obviously with Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones did not want it to end in tie. No one did. So maybe we should change that. But it was still a great game nonetheless. But as always, make sure if you enjoy NFL content to like and subscribe because we're going to be here all year round, breaking down games, key moments, key highlights. But yeah, overall, give me your thoughts in the comments. What was your biggest takeaway from week 4? What teams shocked you the most? What disappointed you the most? Certain players? Did you win your fantasy game? I was able to pretty much, I'm guaranteed to win this week, so that was great to see. And then we have 2 games tonight. The Jets-Dolphins battle for who can get their first win should be interesting. I'm riding with the Dolphins. And then Bengals-Broncos. I think the Broncos are the better team, better defense at home. I think they improved to 2-2. But we'll always make sure to recap those tomorrow. Please make sure to like, subscribe. Truly means a lot. Try and reach 100 subscribers by the end of October. And as always, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.